They told us education was the way out. A ticket to something better, something more. But they lied to us. AT 35 years old, standing behind the scratched counter of a nowhere diner, wiping up spilled coffee from cracked mugs. I still wanted that dream so badly I could taste it. My life had become an endless loop of small talk, small tips, and smaller hopes. Debt strangled me tighter every month, a silent reminder that I was slipping further away from the future I once imagined. When the ads for Patriot Academy first appeared, they hit me like a jolt of lightning. Billboards, bus stops, online videos, everywhere I looked, there it was, learn business from America's best. Big gold letters. Bright flags waving. A smiling lineup of graduates standing proudly with their certificates. And that endorsement, loud, shining, and certain. I should have been skeptical. But hope is a stubborn, blinding thing. When you're desperate, even the thinnest promises feel real enough to touch. The application was so easy it felt wrong. Just a few clicks, a video interview where a chipper woman named Madison told me I was exactly the kind of American success story they wanted. I smiled so wide my cheeks hurt. She told me they would fast-track my acceptance. Then came the enrollment fee. $12,000.12. I had maybe $2,000 in my bank account, meant to keep my lights on and fix the aging car I relied on to get to the diner every day. But I didn't even blink. I drained it. Took out a loan I couldn't afford. Signed papers I barely read. The brochures promised jobs. Career coaching. A network of high-level conservative leaders ready to mentor me. They showed pictures of bustling lecture halls, students shaking hands with smiling executives. I pressed the glossy paper to my chest one night and whispered, "Please, please let this be real." First day arrived. My heart hammered against my ribs as I pulled into the campus. Except it wasn't a campus. It was a strip mall, a sad, half-empty strip mall, with a single door marked Patriot Academy in cheap vinyl lettering. The inside was worse. A bare-bones lobby with a cracked foam marble floor and a dusty folding table where a bored-looking receptionist handed me a packet. Orientations in Room 2. Room 2 was just an old office with folding chairs, a squeaky projector, and a stale smell that clung to my clothes. I felt the first crack inside me that day, a hairline fracture running through my gut. Something was wrong, but I pushed it down. Smiled. Told myself all great things start small. Maybe they were just getting started. Maybe they needed time to grow. Maybe this was still the beginning of my real life. Right, the instructors were nothing like I expected. There were no distinguished professors, no seasoned entrepreneurs sharing insider knowledge. Instead, a rotating cast of lecturers barked slogans about taking control of your destiny and fighting the liberal elite. Lessons were delivered in PDFs printed at home, filled with typos and cliches. Our assignments were just worksheets asking us to write 5 reasons we loved capitalism. Questions about internships or career placements were brushed aside. Focus on building your mindset first. They'd chirp. Every week felt more hollow than the last. Every pep rally, because that's what they were, not lectures, repeated the same empty promises. I sat in those gray plastic chairs, scribbling notes I knew were useless, pretending to be excited. Pretending to believe, because if I let myself stop and truly see it, if I let the horror of what I'd done to my future sink in, I didn't know if I'd survive it. Still, cracks widened. Late-night texts buzzed among classmates. Does this feel weird to you? Anyone actually get that mentor they promised? I asked about job placement, and they told me to think bigger. Panic flickered behind 2 wide smiles. Fear tucked behind desperate laughter. No one wanted to say it outright. We had been fooled. But deep down, we all knew, and so did they. Every Friday, we'd file into the biggest room they had, barely bigger than a garage, to hear Mitch Turner, the Academy's CEO, deliver another thundering inspiration talk. His voice boomed about patriotism and responsibility while he flaunted a $1,000 watch and diamond cufflinks. He'd smile that wide, fake smile, sweep his hand over us like a king addressing his court, and say, The only thing standing between you and success is you. And every time a little more of me died inside, I'd see the same flickers of doubt in the other's eyes. Some cried silently. Some clapped a little too hard, trying to convince themselves, and me? I just sat there. I smiled. I nodded, because beneath that fake smile, something else had started to grow, something harder. Sharper, not just rage, something colder. A promise to myself, you're going to pay for this. Every lie. Every debt. Every empty dream sold to desperate people like me, you're going to pay. Still, at night, doubt gnawed at me. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I wasn't working hard enough. Maybe this was just paying dues. Maybe if I smiled more, worked harder, believed harder, it would get better. I didn't tell my friends. I couldn't bear the shame. They already thought I was foolish for trying. I woke up early, ironed my one decent blouse, and marched into that broken strip mall every morning like it was Harvard. I scribbled notes in a notebook filled with lies. I downloaded every document they gave us, recorded every fake lecture. AT night, I organized it all. Quietly, methodically, because if there was one thing I still had left, one tiny ember they hadn't stamped out yet, it was this. I was going to get justice. No matter what it cost. The first true test came sooner than I expected. One afternoon. After a networking event where we stood awkwardly in a parking lot shaking hands with each other, I stayed behind to ask about real job opportunities. Mitch was there. Laughing, lounging in his tailored suit, sipping from a silver thermos. When I asked, politely, carefully, about job placements, he threw his head back and laughed. A deep, mocking sound. "Honey," he said, grinning at his staffers, "you need food stamps to pay tuition, or what?" The others laughed. I forced a smile so hard my face hurt. Inside, though, something shifted, a final crack. A final snap. Not anger. Not sadness, it resolved it. And more hope. No more dreams, only the plan. I would play the part of the eager student a little longer. I would smile and clap and take notes. I would pass every class. I would nod along to every empty promise, and then I would tear this house of cards down, brick by brick, word by word, lie by lie.as. I walked to my car that night, the sun dipping low over the sad strip mall. I realized something. They had taken my money, they had taken my dignity, but they hadn't taken my will. Not yet, and now, finally, I had something stronger than hoped. I had purpose, and I was going to use it. Not every betrayal comes with flashing lights and warning signs. Some slip in quietly, dressed up as promises. AT first. I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe all programs took time to show results. Maybe the job offers and the internships were just around the corner. Delayed but still coming. 2 months in, reality left no more room for pretending. The business courses were nothing but downloadable PDFs. Half the lessons were riddled with spelling mistakes and random quotes pasted from blogs. Our professors? Freelancers found online, reading bullet points off a screen, barely able to answer basic questions. One day, I asked my branding coach about marketing strategies. She blinked, shuffled her papers, and started a vague rant about staying positive through adversity. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, jotted down meaningless notes. Every moment spent pretending to learn, I built my case against them. By the 3rd month, the weight of the scam pressed harder against my chest. Students started disappearing. First one, then another, then 5 more. No explanation. No acknowledgement from the staff. They simply stopped showing up, their chairs left cold and empty. Those of us who stayed were either too scared to leave or too broke to quit. We had already sunk too much into this dream, too much money, too much pride. During a career seminar, a man who introduced himself as a top strategist spent an hour lecturing us on the importance of visualizing abundance. His only credential? A series of blurry Facebook posts about entrepreneurial excellence. Some of us tried asking hard questions. Where are the promised internships? When do the hiring fairs start? The answers were always the same, empty reassurances and slick smiles. Stay focused. Success is a mindset. Meanwhile, the marble-floored lobby got shinier. The CEO, Mitch Turner, upgraded his already expensive car. Staffers strutted in brand new suits. The only thing growing at Patriot Academy was their wealth. I played my part, smiled at every pep talk, nodded at every ridiculous business strategy. Meanwhile, late at night, I worked, gathering screenshots, recording Zoom meetings, saving copies of fake assignments, building a file so massive it would be impossible to ignore. I wasn't the only one. Whispers traveled the halls. Quick glances between students. Shaky texts sent late at night. Are you saving emails too? I think we need to talk to someone. We were growing bolder. The more they lied, the harder we clung to the truth. I met a few classmates secretly at a diner 3 towns over. We shared stories, traded evidence. Some had videos. Others had contracts. One girl, her hands trembling, slid a flash drive across the table. Everything. Their promises, their fake partnerships. All of it. Her voice cracked. They can't get away with this. One afternoon, we sat through another leadership summit in the crumbling strip mall. Mitch, wearing a gold tie and a smug grin, barked about personal accountability while students sat motionless, dead-eyed. I stared at him, wondering how he slept at night. Did he see us as fools? As easy prey? Or, and this chilled me more, did he not see us at all? Were we just numbers to him? Names on checks? Forgotten the moment the money cleared? As I watched him, something inside me hardened further. I would not be forgotten. I would make sure they remembered me. Getting outside help wasn't easy. AT first. No one wanted to listen. Reporters brushed me off. Lawyers told me I didn't have enough evidence. Complaints to local authorities disappeared into endless voicemails and polite form letters. Meanwhile, Mitch and his team kept cashing in. New Patriot Business Expos. New exclusive boot camps costing even more money. I was running out of time. Debt collectors called daily. My diner shifts barely covered gas. Some nights, I skipped dinner to keep my phone on, but every setback made me hungrier, and finally, I found her. A journalist. Someone who cared. She answered my shaky email with a 2-sentence reply, "Tell me everything." The first meeting was terrifying. We sat in a quiet coffee shop, my evidence spread between us. She listened without interrupting, her pen moving fast across a small notebook. "You're not alone," she said when I finished. 4 simple words. But they cracked something open inside me. We spent hours building the story. She interviewed other students, compared documents, cross-checked financials. Every lie, every broken promise, laid out in black and white. The night before the first article dropped, I didn't sleep. I paced my tiny apartment, checking my phone every few minutes. Would this work? Would they finally be exposed? At dawn, the article went live. Education or exploitation? Inside the Patriot Academy scandal. The fallout was immediate. News vans outside the campus. Parents demanding refunds. Former students flooding social media with their stories. Mitch tried to spin it. Released a statement blaming disgruntled students and fake news attacks. But it was too late. The journalist had receipts, documents, videos, testimonies. The public turned. Sponsors pulled out. Politicians distanced themselves. Inside the academy, chaos reigned. Staffers snapped at each other. Classes were canceled. Doors locked without explanation. I walked past the building one last time. The Patriot Academy sign hung crooked, flapping weakly in the wind. A fitting end for a place built on empty promises, and yet, even then, I knew it wasn't over. Mitch wouldn't go down quietly. He'd fight, and I was ready. Ready for whatever came next, because once you've seen the truth, once you've tasted even a sliver of justice, you can't go back. You don't want to. The storm hadn't even settled when I decided to go further. Exposing them wasn't enough. I wanted it all documented, their lies, their tricks, their theft, in a way no one could ever ignore again. While the first wave of media attention hit Mitch and his team, I slipped deeper into gathering evidence. Quietly, strategically, while their guard was still down, the key was to act normal. As if the article hadn't rattled me. As if I was still a believer, I smiled in meetings. I posted supportive comments online. I even attended a recommitment rally Mitch hastily organized for the true patriots still loyal to the academy. It was almost laughable how desperate he looked. Gone was the polished confidence. Mitch's speeches became rambling, defensive, laced with veiled threats against traitors and saboteurs. Behind the scenes, I worked faster. Emails, contracts, private chats. I gathered them all. I reached out to more former students. We built encrypted group chats, sharing screenshots, invoices, videos. The more I found, the more horrifying it became. False promises of scholarships, faked accreditation certificates, fabricated job placement statistics. Students who had taken out massive loans based on lies, some now facing bankruptcy. One night, sitting at my tiny kitchen table surrounded by piles of evidence, I realized something. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. About every person they had tricked. Drained, abandoned. Finding the right lawyer was almost as hard as finding the right journalist. Most slammed the door the moment I mentioned the academy. Too political, too messy, too risky, but eventually one firm, small but fierce, took our case. The class action lawsuit began quietly. Letters sent. Papers filed. Notices delivered. Mitch responded exactly as we expected, with fury, threats, counter-accusations, attempts to intimidate. Some students received ominous reminders about non-disclosure agreements, even though those NDAs were worthless under the fraud they had committed. Others were offered hush money, small checks with big strings attached. They thought fear would silence us, but fear had already burned away. In its place was something unbreakable: determination. Mitch grew sloppier under pressure. Emails leaked where he mocked students, bragged about milking the patriot cash cow, joked about keeping the rubes busy with flags and slogans. Each new leak tightened the noose. News outlets picked up the story again. Documentaries were pitched. Investigative specials filmed. The academy's enrollment plummeted. Sponsors fled. Former allies denied ever knowing them, but the real crack came from inside. An insider, a staff member, reached out to us, terrified, shaking, but ready to tell everything. He gave us internal memos, financial records, proof of where the money had gone and who had taken it, and it wasn't just Mitch. Several top executives were implicated. Names I had heard shouted proudly from stages. People who had smiled and shaken my hand. Betrayal at every level. The journalist's next piece hit harder than the first. Patriot Academy, a business of broken dreams. It opened with a picture of Mitch's mansion, bought with tuition money, footage of empty classrooms, abandoned textbooks, interviews with devastated students who had trusted, sacrificed, and lost everything. I watched the segment alone, curled up on my threadbare couch, my heart pounding, when my face flashed briefly across the screen, blurry, unidentifiable. I felt no fear, only pride. For once, the truth had a voice. And it was louder than their lies. Court dates were set. Lawyers prepared. The academy tried one last desperate move: rebranding, new name, new logo. Same lies, but it didn't work. Their reputation was beyond saving. Their name, whatever it was mud. Mitch's final video address was a masterpiece of delusion. Standing stiffly in front of an American flag, he blamed cancel culture, ungrateful students, media conspiracies. Never once did he admit fault. Never once did he say, "I'm sorry." And maybe that was the greatest reveal of all. He didn't believe he had done anything wrong. He believed we had, for daring to expect the future he promised, for daring to fight back. The last time I saw the Patriot Academy building, it was gutted. Windows boarded up, graffiti scrawled across the walls, a for lease sign swinging in the breeze. I parked across the street, sipping a stale coffee, and just watched as the empire Mitch had built on our hopes crumbled into dust. Watched as students, some laughing, some crying, took selfies in front of the wreckage. Watched as, piece by piece, we reclaimed our own stories. Not victims, survivors. warriors, and even though the fight wasn't over, even though the court battle loomed ahead, for the first time in a long time, I let myself breathe, really breathe, because we weren't powerless anymore. We never had been. We just needed to remember, and now we would never forget. Some victories don't arrive with parades or loud celebrations. They creep in quietly, born from sleepless nights and relentless battles. After months of silence, the first court date arrived. I stood outside the courthouse, clutching a worn leather folder packed with evidence. Students gathered nearby, some holding signs, others holding each other's hands. We had become a strange family, united by betrayal, bonded by the need for justice. Inside, Mitch sat at the defendant's table, flanked by a team of expensive lawyers. He looked smaller now, swallowed by a too-large suit, his bravado stripped away. He didn't meet my eyes. Not once. The proceedings dragged on for hours. Legal jargon filled the air, cold and sterile. But every piece of evidence presented felt like another brick in the wall closing in on him. Emails, fake certificates, testimonies, videos. There was no escaping it anymore. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited, reporters crowded the steps. Microphones thrust forward, shouting questions. I kept my head down, refusing interviews. This wasn't about fame. It was about righting a wrong. Some nights, though, when I lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling, doubt whispered, had we really done enough? Would justice really come? Mitch's legal team fought viciously. Filed motions, delayed hearings, attacked victims' credibility. But the truth has a weight that's hard to shake once it's anchored deep enough, and we had anchored it well. During one hearing, Mitch finally took the stand. I watched as he shifted uncomfortably under oath, avoiding direct answers, offering slick non-apologies. Mistakes were made. We regret any misunderstandings. We were pioneers in a challenging new market. The courtroom buzzed with tension, and then, the moment that changed everything. One of our lawyers presented a hidden camera recording. Mitch, laughing at a private fundraiser, bragging about squeezing patriotic dollars and selling the dream better than anyone else. The jury's faces hardened. Even the judge looked unimpressed. For the first time, Mitch seemed to realize he might actually lose. Settlement discussions began quietly. They offered money, a lot of it, enough to make some people consider walking away. But not me. Money mattered, sure. I needed it badly. But principle mattered more. I refused to sign anything that didn't come with a full admission of wrongdoing and full repayment to all the victims. And no more half-dashed truths. And no more hiding. They pushed back hard. Threatened more court battles. Warned us about dragging things out for years. I didn't care. I wasn't afraid anymore. They had taught me that. And trying to break me, they had built something they couldn't control. When the final settlement was announced, it wasn't perfect. But it was victory. $75 million divided among the students. Full dissolution of Patriot Academy. Permanent bans against Mitch and his executives from operating educational businesses again. IT wasn't enough to erase the scars, but it was enough to reclaim our dignity. Enough to tell the world that what happened to us mattered. Enough to say, we fought back, and we won. After the final court date, a few of us gathered outside. The sun broke through gray clouds as if even the sky was sighing in relief. We didn't throw a party, we didn't cheer. We just stood together, breathing in the moment. Some cried. Some laughed. I just closed my eyes, letting the warmth soak into my skin. Freedom felt different than I expected. Quieter, deeper, more lasting. I took my settlement money and cleared my debts, paid off my car, moved into a better apartment with sunlight streaming through real windows. I bought new clothes, sturdy and simple, ones that fit the woman I had become, and then, because it felt right, I bought a plane ticket, one-way to Italy, to a tiny village where no one knew my name, where vineyards stretched beyond sight and the air smelled like hope. I didn't go to run away. I went to remember who I was before they tried to take everything, before I let them point. One evening, sitting at a small cafe overlooking rolling hills, I raised a glass of red wine to the sunset. I thought about Mitch, about all of them, not with anger, not with regret, with a strange, unexpected gratitude, because in trying to destroy us, They had forced us to find our strength, to find each other, to find ourselves, and no matter where. Life led next. I knew one thing for certain. Hope is powerful, but truth is unstoppable, and we had found it, held on to it, fought for it, and in the end, it set us free. I swirled the wine in my glass, smiling to myself. The world was wide open again, not because someone gave me a chance, but because I took it, because I dared to believe I was worth fighting for, and because when the time came to strike back, to fight, to stand, to refuse to be broken, I did. And I would do it again, a year later. The memories still visit me. Sometimes they come quietly, like the scent of the ocean on a breeze. Other times they crash into me with the force of a storm I thought I had already weathered. It would be easy to pretend that winning the lawsuit wiped everything clean. That once the checks were cut and the headlines faded, we simply stepped into new, shinier lives. But life isn't a fairy tale. Healing isn't a straight line. Some nights, I still hear Mitch's laugh in my dreams. Still feel the burning shame of being called desperate in that crowded room. Still remember the faces of classmates who lost more than I did, their homes, their health, their hope. I carry them with me, every day. Italy healed parts of me I didn't even know were broken. The slow rhythm of village life. The easy smiles of strangers. The way no one asked me who I used to be, only who I was now. I found work at a local vineyard, helping with tours and tastings. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Honest. Every bottle told a story of patience, of tending something fragile until it bloomed strong, kind of like me. Every evening, after the guests left and the sun dipped behind the hills, I'd sit with a notebook and write. Not about Mitch. Not about the court, about dreams, about the life I was building. Word by word, choice by choice. The settlement money didn't last forever, and that was fine. I learned how to live simply. How to take joy in small victories, a good meal, a new friend, a sunrise that painted the sky gold. Sometimes people would ask why I moved to Italy. I'd smile and say, to find the life I lost. They'd nod, as if they understood. Maybe some of them did. Pain recognizes pain, even across oceans and languages. One afternoon, while stacking crates in the vineyard cellar, my phone buzzed with a message from a former classmate. Did you see? I hadn't. I wiped my hands on my jeans and clicked the link. There he was, Mitch Turner. In handcuffs, charged with new crimes, fraud, misappropriation of funds, conspiracy. Apparently, after Patriot Academy collapsed, he had tried to start another educational program overseas, but this time, the authorities were ready. This time, no one looked away. This time, justice came faster. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not with triumph, not with rage, just acceptance. Some people never change, but some lessons finally catch up to them. Later that night, sitting under a blanket of stars, I let myself cry for the first time in months. Not tears of sorrow, tears of release, tears for the girl I had been, hopeful, naive, determined, and for the woman I had become, strong, clear-eyed, unbreakable. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching basic business skills to young women. Real skills. Real paths to real futures. Every time a student's eyes lit up with understanding, I felt a piece of my heart knit itself whole again. They deserved better than empty promises. They deserved truth. We all did. The vineyard eventually offered me a full-time role managing tours and events. A promotion I accepted, not because I needed a title, but because it felt right, because it honored the journey I had fought so hard to complete, because it proved to myself, finally, fully, that I was not broken. I was rebuilt, stronger, wiser, alive. Sometimes I think about returning home, about standing in front of the old diner, breathing in the air of the town that tried to hold me down, not to gloat, not to reopen old wounds, just to show the world and myself how far I had come. Maybe someday, or maybe not. Maybe true freedom isn't proving anything to anyone. Maybe it's living a life so rich and full that the past becomes just another story, one chapter in a book that's still being written, a book that belongs to me and no one else. As I sit here now, sipping coffee on a quiet terrace, watching the sun paint the hills gold, I know this for sure. They tried to steal my future. They tried to bury me in shame and debt. They tried to break me, but all they did, in the end, was teach me how to rise, how to fight, how to win, and how to live, truly, fully, beautifully alive.